They say kindness can change lives. But what if the kindness you give to a stranger reveals a shocking secret that changes your own life forever? Today's story is more than just a tale of care and duty. It's about an extraordinary nurse named Amelia, who dedicated years of her life to taking care of an elderly billionaire in a coma. To her, he wasn't just a patient. He was someone who deserved every ounce of compassion, even though he lay silent. But there was something hidden beneath the surface, something neither she nor anyone else could have foreseen. As she tirelessly looked after him day after day, Amelia would eventually stumble upon a powerful secret, a connection that would forever change her life. This isn't just a story of duty. It's a story of family, mystery, and the surprising ways life sometimes ties us to others. Let's unravel the journey of how one woman's kindness led her to a truth that would shake her to her core. Amelia's life revolved around caring for her patients, and she brought a sense of warmth to everyone she helped. But when Charles, the wealthy, high-profile businessman, was admitted to the hospital, she felt a deeper connection to his case, even if she didn't fully understand why. Charles was in his 70s, with a reputation that stretched across industries. He had built an empire, a name known in every corner of the business world, yet his life seemed void of close relationship. For Amelia, though, he was more than just a wealthy figure in a hospital bed. Every day, she found herself by his side, tending to his medical needs but also talking to him, sharing small stories from her life, even though he lay there, motionless. Many of her co-workers raised eyebrows at her dedication. Why put so much into someone who might never come back? They'd ask. But Amelia believed deeply in her role as a caregiver, especially for those who had no one else. She had witnessed firsthand how little acts of kindness could make a difference, even if the patients weren't conscious to acknowledge them. But soon, strange details began to creep into her mind. The longer she spent by his side, the more she noticed things that just didn't sit right. There were whispers among the staff that hinted at secrets in Charles's past, things that even Amelia couldn't quite put her finger on. Little by little, these curiosities turned into pressing questions. Why was a man with so much wealth and success so utterly alone in this moment? Why were there no family members or friends fighting to be by his side, waiting for him to recover? Her intrigue grew when she found a series of notes in his personal belongings, a set of documents and letters that hinted at unresolved matters and connections long buried. Against her better judgment, Amelia couldn't help but pique, feeling like there was something about his life, some deeper story, that she was somehow meant to understand. Meanwhile, her colleagues continued to gossip, some even suggesting Charles might be hiding dark secrets or had estranged his family with his intense business pursuit. Amelia knew she should let it go and focus only on her duties, but her heart pulled her in another direction. There was something about this man, this mystery, that wouldn't let her rest. As the days went on, she made a silent promise to herself. She would uncover the truth about Charles, no matter what it took. Unbeknownst to her, this determination would lead her down a path of discovery, one that would force her to confront her own past, and reveal a shocking link between her and the man she'd dedicated so much of her time to helping. As Amelia's curiosity grew, so did her resolve. She started to reach out carefully to anyone who had known Charles before his life became defined by his corporate empire. His reputation was one of a driven, ambitious businessman, but she quickly realized that his life had been far from picture-perfect. The further she looked, the more she began to piece together a different side of him, a side shaped by choices, regrets, and, most of all, secrets he'd kept hidden. Amelia didn't know what exactly she was looking for, but something compelled her to keep going. Every evening, she'd sit by his side and talk to him as if he could respond. Some days, she would read from novels she imagined he'd enjoy, based on her hunches and the little she'd learned about his taste. Other times, she'd share moments from her own life, her hopes, struggles, and memories. It felt strange to open up like this to someone who lay unresponsive, but something about their silent connection comforted her. Then one evening, while tidying up Charles's belongings, she came across an old book tucked in the drawer by his bed. It was worn and creased, likely one of his favorite. As she flipped through its pages, a small, faded photograph slipped out and fluttered to the floor. Picking it up, Amelia's heart raced. The photo was of a young woman who looked uncannily like her own mother. For a moment, Amelia couldn't move. Questions flooded her mind, each one more confusing than the last. Why would Charles have a picture of someone who resembled her mother? Was it a strange coincidence, or was there a connection deeper than she could fathom? Driven by a mix of shock and curiosity, she decided she had to know more. Over the next few days, Amelia began her own quiet investigation. She took her search beyond the hospital walls, looking into public records, family history, and any hints she could find that would link her family to Charles. She knew it was risky and likely against protocol, but something about this discovery felt too personal to ignore. She managed to locate Harold, an old friend of Charles who had long since retired from their corporate circle. He was hesitant to share details at first, but when Amelia explained that she was one of Charles's nurses and that she'd discovered a strange connection, Harold slowly opened up. He reminisced about their early years, filled with memories of business ventures, travels, and a mysterious love affair Charles once had with a young woman. According to Harold, it had been intense but brief, a chapter in Charles's life that ended almost as quickly as it began. Amelia listened carefully, piecing together the fragments of the story. The dates lined up almost too well. Charles's brief romance had occurred around the same time her grandmother would have been a young woman, and Harold even mentioned a resemblance between Charles's old love and Amelia's features. Suddenly, the photo she had found started to feel like more than a coincidence. It felt like a bridge connecting her to a past she hadn't known existed. With each new detail, the realization that Charles might be her grandfather began to feel both thrilling and terrifying. If true, it would mean the man she had spent so many hours caring for was her family, her blood. It would also mean that the warmth and dedication she felt toward him hadn't been misplaced. It had been instinctual, a quiet bond that neither of them had known existed. But with this discovery came a series of complex emotions. Amelia grappled with the sadness of realizing that Charles had lived much of his life without knowing about her or her mother. She imagined the hardships her grandmother must have faced without his support, and the choices her mother had to make, raising Amelia without ever knowing the full story of her family. Yet, through all the emotions, one thing became clear. Amelia needed to know if this connection was real. She didn't want fame or fortune, she'd always been content with her life. But the idea that she might finally be uncovering a part of her identity, a link to her heritage, was something she couldn't ignore. So, she kept searching. With each passing day, she grew closer to discovering the truth, and with it, a sense of closure for both herself and, perhaps, for Charles. Even as he lay in his coma, Amelia hoped he could somehow feel her presence, that he knew she was there, caring for him not only as a nurse but, potentially, as family. The path to her answers wasn't clear, but one thing was certain. This journey would forever change both her life and the legacy Charles would leave behind. As Amelia prepared to confront her mother with everything she'd discovered, her nerves were on edge. Sitting across from her, she revealed the strange photo she had found, along with the stories Harold had shared and the timeline that lined up so perfectly. Her mother's face grew pale as she listened, her gaze shifting from the photograph to her daughter, and then down to her hands. After a moment of silence, she finally spoke, her voice trembling. "Yes, Amelia," she whispered, "Charles is my father. He's your grandfather." Amelia was stunned, even though she had suspected as much. Hearing it confirmed felt like a piece of her life falling into place. Her mother explained, revealing bits of her own life that Amelia had never known. She had been raised in privilege, surrounded by wealth, but it came with strict expectations. Her father, Charles, had tried to guide her toward a life in his world, a world of power, legacy, and reputation. But she hadn't wanted that life. She chose to walk away, leaving behind the trappings of wealth for a quieter, simpler existence where she could raise Amelia without the burden of high expectations and pressure. Charles had never fully understood her decision, and over the years, they drifted apart, each choosing different paths. Amelia's mother had tried to shield her from the complexities of her background, never once mentioning her family's wealth or the man who had once been so significant in her life. For Amelia, it was a lot to process. The man she had devoted so much care to wasn't just a stranger in need, he was her family. Her mind raced through every moment they had spent together, every hour she had spoken to him as he lay in that bed. Somewhere deep down, maybe she had always sensed the connection, maybe that was why she felt so drawn to him. In the days that followed, Amelia wrestled with her emotions. She was overwhelmed by the irony, the revelation that the man she had been serving selflessly was, in fact, the very reason she was here. Her loyalty, her commitment to her work, everything seemed to mean more now that she knew he was her grandfather. Yet she felt a sadness, too, knowing that he had missed out on seeing her grow up, on knowing her mother as she matured, and on the family he could have had. Amelia knew she had to take action, so she arranged a meeting with the hospital board. She explained her relationship to Charles, sharing the whole story, from the discovery of the photograph to her mother's confirmation. The board members listened intently, exchanging glances as Amelia spoke with unwavering honesty. She made it clear that her commitment to Charles wasn't based on any desire for recognition or inheritance. She simply wanted to care for him as she always had, only now, she'd be doing it with a deeper understanding of their bond. The board considered her request carefully. They acknowledged Amelia's dedication and the exceptional care she had shown Charles from the beginning. Recognizing the sincerity in her words and her unique perspective, they ultimately agreed to allow her to continue as his primary nurse. Her commitment, they felt, transcended professional boundaries. It was now personal in a way that few caregivers could experience. With the hospital's approval, Amelia returned to Charles's bedside with renewed purpose. She sat with him, day after day, reading, talking, and hoping he would wake up and learn the truth. She shared more of herself, more of her family history, even recounting memories of her childhood, as if he could hear every word. She would sit there, holding his hand, whispering to him that he wasn't alone, that his family was with him, right there, even if he couldn't see them. In her quiet moments, Amelia often found herself imagining what their reunion would be like if he ever woke up. She envisioned him opening his eyes, recognizing her face, and understanding who she was. She hoped he'd feel the warmth of the connection they shared, a bond that transcended the years they had lost. Each day, her faith in his recovery grew stronger, as did her resolve to be there for him. Amelia knew that she couldn't rewrite the past, and she accepted that her mother's choices were her own. But in her own way, she felt she was giving Charles a second chance, a chance to feel the love of family, even in his fragile state. She hoped that somehow, even in his silence, he felt it too. And though she didn't know what the future held, Amelia felt a profound peace, knowing she was exactly where she needed to be, right by her grandfather's side, sharing a bond neither of them had ever expected. Amelia's journey with Charles changed her life in ways she could never have imagined. What began as a regular nursing assignment turned into a life-altering discovery that deepened her sense of purpose and redefined her understanding of family. Though Charles remained in a coma, Amelia's commitment grew beyond duty. She was no longer just his nurse. She was his granddaughter, bound to him by an unbreakable bond she had uncovered. Every day, she visited his bedside, sharing details of her life, her dreams, and her gratitude for the unexpected connection. She hoped he'd one day wake up and know he wasn't alone. This experience taught her the profound importance of kindness, that every person has a story, even if it's hidden, and that small acts of compassion can reveal unexpected connections. Amelia's story spread throughout the hospital, reminding others that behind every patient lies a world of memories, relationships, and untold stories. Her dedication inspired those around her to treat each person with the same compassion, knowing that sometimes, the smallest kindnesses connect us in ways we may never fully realize. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe and comments for more real-life stories about family, resilience, and the unexpected turns in life.